Fit to be Read is BookTube's hottest club.
This club has everything. Ghosts,
thumping music, mini book hauls, AI, aliens, and unboxings. Jennifer Lawrence with a crossbow, weird dogs, Molly Ringwald, genetically modified babies, and Matt Damon in a spacesuit. My top 150 has everything. A revenge theme, mermen, the gods themselves,
a shaved lion that looks like Mario Batali,
drugs,
geeks,
and after the credit scene, and quantum entanglement. This video
gives new meaning to the question,
what's in the box? I'm Michael Evers, and this is Fit to be Read. This is a very special episode of Fit to be Read. This is my top 150 science fiction reads of all time. This is a list of my favorite 150 novels in the science fiction genre. This is not intended to be a must-read of science fiction. This is not intended to be the top 150 science fiction books ever written. It's the books I enjoyed the most. I thought about maybe 400 books that I could think of or remember reading in science fiction, narrowed that down to 200, narrowed it down further to the really 150 books that I really enjoyed reading. You can get to the top 100 on this and change the order around, and it still would be pretty much correct. I really enjoyed all of these books, so I hope that this will be a resource for those who are maybe new to the genre and can find a number of titles to look at and think about. Or for those who really love science fiction, maybe there's a couple of titles on here that you really haven't thought of before, and maybe you find something new that you want to check out. Batting lead off for our list at number 150 is Hard to Be a God by Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. This was published in 1964. In this story, humans from Earth are secretly monitoring a less advanced human society on another planet. I can't articulate how, but the authors being Russians living in communist Russia gives a unique perspective to the society that's posited that we couldn't have gotten from an American author. I ate it up. Number 149, The Invincible by Stanislaw Lem, published in 1973. Lem gives us an investigation into what happened to a nearly invincible spaceship on another planet, inorganic aliens, and a story about what could happen when facing the unknown. Number 148 is going to be Mirror Dance and the Vorkosigan Saga. This is written by Lois McMaster Bujold, started in 1994 and well beyond, because this is a huge series of 17 novels and short stories. I think it's 17. We're following main character Miles Vorkosigan. It's a series that starts out mainly action-adventure science fiction, but it evolves to become more dynamic and psychological. It's set in the far future, and humans have colonized many planets throughout the galaxy. Mirror Dance, which I think is the 9th novel, is a story of swapped identities, and it's a 5-star book, and it's the best of the series for me. I thought for this next one it was going to be fun to do this wardrobe swap, and it didn't quite work out as well because I wasn't expecting it to have this giant collar when I picked it out. I always just pick out a medium t-shirt. I don't try them on. Then I got this on. Collar's not great. So what? I think those of you who have read and enjoyed this book as I have will get this reference. I'll give you a second to see if you know what it is. Anyway, we're talking about number 147, The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. We've got Chinese version, English version. English version, I believe, came out in 2015. I really like the initial setting of the Cultural Revolution in China at the start of this book. Cixin Liu has a unique approach to first contact and the potential pitfalls of that contact. He also introduces an interesting concept for how another planet might try to contact us virtually. Number 146 is Blood Music by Greg Bear, published in 1986. The concept in Blood Music was interesting and it was executed well. A scientist is fired from a biotech firm and takes the experimental cells he's invented with him. He injects himself with the material, and said material develops sentience and wants to multiply. The concept and the idea is better than the writing, but it is still a very enjoyable read. At number 145, we have Greg Bear again with Foundation in Chaos, published in 1998. The only other Greg Bear on this list is this channeling of Isaac Asimov. In this authorized extension of the Foundation series, this entry builds in some good detail about how the Foundation got started, and even though I know what's going to happen later from reading the original series, this still felt fresh and really very exciting. Number 144 is Starside Rising, representing the entire Uplift series. This was written by David Brin and published in 1983. This is the sequel to Sundiver, and it's the second book in the Uplift series. I highlight this one over Sundiver as it was a really superior space opera and it had an amazing chaotic chase. It was a very good read. Number 143 is Virtual Light by William Gibson, published in 1993. What a surprise, this is dystopian and cyberpunk, and it's Gibson, so it's also really, really good. At its core, it's a crime thriller, and it's probably more of an accessible read than some of Gibson's other work. This is the first book in the Bridge trilogy. While I do have the books for all of the books that I'm mentioning on this list, I don't know where they all are, and I really wanted to show this next one, but I'm going to have to do without. The cover of this one's pretty cool. This is Terranacia by Greg Egan, published in 1999. Greg Egan is the master of hard science fiction. This is not one of his hardest, and it's maybe a good entry point for folks who are new to Greg Egan. Themes in this novel include evolution, consciousness, sexuality, and gender. Number 141 is Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill. This is published in 2017. Sea of Rust, eliciting some iRobot vibes, is imaginative and unique. If great world building, post-humanity, AI, and impressive action scenes are your thing, Sea of Rust delivers all of that and more. If you're interested in this next one, you can actually check out a full review of the book on my channel. Number 140 is We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. This was published in 2016. There's not going to be a lot of YA on this list, but this one really connected with me. It's barely science fiction, as the main character is perhaps abducted by aliens, and he's given the opportunity to decide if he wants to save the impending destruction of Earth by simply pushing a button. It would be an easy decision if he wasn't still dealing with the trauma of his boyfriend's recent suicide and the constant bullying he faces. Number 139 is The Hunger Games and its sequels. This is by Suzanne Collins, published in 2008, and the sequels after that. If this list was a more critical one, I might be a bit harsh on the holes in this dystopian setting, but I breezed through this trilogy years ago, and it's really a great page-turner. It's good for teens and adults alike. In this dystopia, the population of 13 districts is ruled through fear. An extension of that are the Hunger Games, a contest where tributes, children from each district, battle to the death. The non-stop action is what makes this most enjoyable. Number 138 is The Lathe of Heaven, written by Ursula Le Guin in 1971. Le Guin is one of my favorite authors, so of course she's going to be on this list a few times. Le Guin scolds us on the dangers of playing God. This story about a man who alters reality with his dreams was very visually, in my mind, stunning, and definitely evokes a full range of emotions. At 137, we have The Murderbot Diaries and All Systems Red. These are small novellas. I'm going to include just the whole series as one entry here, as is my right to do. Written in 2017 and beyond. There's no way I'm going to list out each of these individually, so we're just going to lump all the volumes here at 137. This is a great series. Easy to digest short novellas, starting off with All Systems Red. I love that I could read this in 2 days. Most interesting is the Murderbot free-thinking AI with dynamic emotions. The melancholy and anxiety elements make this a really unique take on robot science fiction, and somehow still fun. We've got this guy here at 136. You can't see him, but you can see the cover. This is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells, published all the way back in 1897. Invisibility is one of my first go-tos if I'm asked what superpower I'd most covet, so no surprise I enjoy this H.G. Wells classic quite a bit. I also love the angle of this gift slowly turning you mad. Number 135 is Ready Player One, written by Ernest Cline in 2011. A critique that I've heard on this one is that it reads like a Wikipedia page on the 1980s, turned clumsily into a book. I'm not going to dispute that, but as a child of the 80s, this book resonated with me and it was immensely enjoyable. I also love that my son Paolo, who is averse to reading books, has read this 5 times. So that's why it's all beat up like this. It's safe to say this would be his number 1 book. I think it's a great recommendation for kids who are hard to pull off of screens to get them to read. Number 134 is Foundation's Fear, written by Gregory Benford in 1997. This is the first of the sanctioned Foundation extension novels that was written after Asimov's death. It's enjoyable, frankly, because it continues the Foundation universe. Benford does a decent enough job adding to Harry Seldon's story, and instead of trying to imitate Asimov, he adds his own unique talent to the story. I found The Sims in the book to be a really nice add. It makes my list of 150 favorites, though. Probably not my list of best science fiction ever written. Number 133, The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, published in 1896. This classic gives us genetic engineering to the extreme. Dr. Moreau is disgraced amongst the scientific community in London. He's experimenting with some insane ideas of animal breeding. The catastrophic results make this frighteningly real-feeling prospect a strong and haunting read. Number 132 is a collaboration. This is The Space Merchants by Frederick Poole and C.M. Kornbluth, who have teamed up for a number of novels. This is absolutely the best of those. Advertising firms are the top dogs in this future Earth. Can I interest you in some real estate on inhospitable Venus? This is a dystopian novel with satire and warnings abound on consumerism and commercialism. This will give you 1984, Fahrenheit 451, and Brave New World vibes. Number 131 is Dream Snake by Vonda N. McIntyre, published in 1979. Dream Snake is set on post-apocalyptic Earth. This one blurs a bit science fiction to a bit sci-fi fantasy. The initial premise of a woman named Snake, who heals with snakes, wouldn't normally get me, but this one did, and I had a history with it already as a kid when I first met it as a shorter novella that eventually got extended. Number 130 is Alas Babylon, written by Pat Frank in 1959. Babylon focuses on an isolated community surviving nuclear holocaust. Written in the 1950s, you see hints of its impact on a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff that came after it. As we get to number 129, please take a second and click the like button, and please subscribe to the channel. That helps me immensely on YouTube to grow this channel. Also, please participate in the comment section below. If there are books that are not on this list that you would have liked to have seen on here and are wondering why they're not on here, let me know in the comment section. I'll certainly respond to them, and maybe we can have a discussion about that. Number 129 is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This was published in 2019. This is the only Crouch novel on the list. Dark Matter, a good read by Blake Crouch, just missed out on being in my top 150. I discussed this in a previous preview video for this list, and I'm happy to discuss that for those who really love that book. I do like it a lot, it just didn't make this list. Recursion wields an interesting premise. An odd affliction that gives people memories of a life not lived. Like Dark Matter, it's definitely a page flipper. Number 128 is The Algebrist by Ian M. Banks, published in 2004. This is a science fiction adventure with really good world building and interesting alien species. The foundation of the story is based on AI, fears, and sympathy. This is a good one if you're into imagining the dark side of artificial intelligence. Number 127 is Dawn by Octavia Butler. Published in 1987, this is a great character-driven story with interactions with aliens that have basically saved the human race from extinction. Octavia Butler is a wildly underrated science fiction author, and this is for sure not the only Butler novel on this list. At number 126 is Foundation's Triumph by David Brin, published in 1999. This one feels like Asimov Foundation fanfiction, which is a good thing. Among the 3 extended non-Asimov Foundation trilogy books, this one reads the most like Asimov's work. Number 125, Altered Carbon by Richard K. Morgan, published in 2002. This is cyber noir punk with clones. The human mind can be downloaded. There is murder mystery. This is a good combination for me. Number 124 is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, published in 2005. This barely feels like science fiction. I mean, we have clones, a near future society, and some other elements, but it's really more a coming of age story, and it's on this list because it's an enjoyable experience, especially the parts that are uncomfortable and crushing. Number 123, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, published in 1985. The Handmaid's Tale is core dystopian fiction. We get the first-person point of view of Offred, a woman who is navigating a patriarchal, fundamentalist-controlled society in which women have no rights. If you like dystopian imaginings, and you like when it drains you emotionally, here you go. Have at it. Number 122, Incandescence by Greg Egan, published in 2008. In Incandescence, there are 2 separate stories that eventually merge, and those come from an advanced evolution galactic civilization and individuals from a more narrowly evolved civilization. I love the wonder of this book. As much as I like this, I wouldn't suggest starting with this as your first time reading Greg Egan. But if you have read him and you like where he takes you, you're the person that I would recommend this book to. Number 121 is The City and the Stars by Arthur C. Clarke, published in 1956. A billion years into an imaginative future with tons of future ideas, the remaining inhabitants of Earth are all residing in one mega advanced city. I think upon reread, this one's going to probably end up higher on my list. This is possibly Clarke's most accomplished work. Number 120 is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. This was published in 1985. This is 2 kind of parallel stories alternating by chapter that eventually merge. One story is in the Wonderland world and the other is the End of the World world. You can't do this book justice in a blurb, but there is crazy adventure, a perfect world, a dream reader, and even unicorns. It's Murakami. For 119, I went with The Siberiad by Stanislaw Lem. This was published in 1974. This is an amazing collection of short stories, mostly centered around the shenanigans of 2 competitive robots. The stories are deeply philosophical, and at the same time, there's decent humor and satire. Number 118 is also Stanislaw Lem. This is Return from the Stars, published in 1980. This had a great time dilation setup, with the main character, an astronaut, returning to Earth after 10 years. 127 years have passed on Earth, and the Earth isn't really that into space exploration at all anymore. This is a great thought-provoking novel by Lem. Number 117, Century Reign by Alastair Reynolds. This was published in 2004. This is sort of a detective story, but it's also Alastair Reynolds, so you of course get lots of goodies like time travel, noir, espionage, robots and AI, chase scenes, adventure, mystery, simulation, wormholes, and space opera, and nanotech. Number 116 is Passage by Connie Willis, published in 2001. I've got about 3 other Connie Willis novels that just missed being on this list. I enjoyed this one the most, and it's what happens when you die and near-death experience aspect ranks this one ahead of the others. At 115 is Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke, published in 1973. This was enjoyable for the slow burn of Clarke leading us on the exploration of a vast alien ship in our solar system and wondering the whole time if we're going to get first contact. The strong atmospheric feel and the contemplation of whether or not we will even be considered significant enough for contact is the payoff in this classic. If you want to see a full review of this, there is a full review on my channel. Selected The Puppet Masters by Robert A. Heinlein, published in 1951. I have not read this one in a long time. I barely remember it, but remember I enjoyed it enough so that it makes it on this list. Alien slugs leech onto people, hijacking their brains, wreaking havoc. Chaos ensues. This is Heinlein's most fun, pulpy science fiction. Number 113 is Gateway and the Heechee Saga, written by Frederick Pohl in 1977. This is the first book in the Heechee Saga, along with the second book, Beyond the Blue Event Horizon. This is my first edition copy, so I got to show it off. The series is excellent. Gateway takes place mostly on Gateway, an asteroid with an abandoned alien spaceport. This book has great psychological twist, and the whole series is worthy of being on this list. Number 112 is Dragon's Egg by Robert Forward, published in 1980. While the writing is at times, or most of the time, somewhat stiff, Egg is a really interesting story of how life forms might exist on a neutron star and under immense gravity. What makes it so enjoyable is how creative it is. It's inventive, but it feels like the physics behind it could really be accurate. Number 111, Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange. This is a visionary dystopian novel featuring lots of violence and themes of good and evil in the near future. I often gripe about authors making up their own language or slang, as it generally feels gratuitous or forced, a la Leviathan Wakes and the Belters, which I do not care for. I care for the book, not the Belter speak. Here it works, and it's quickly, easily to flow with. The violence, while extreme and detailed, works, and it's not gratuitous. You're not going to guess what number 110 is, because this isn't it. This is just foreshadowing. Number 110 is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami, published in 2009. Sometimes I just want a phone book-sized novel to sink into and get lost in. 1Q84 did that for me. I can't do justice in just a blurb for this one. Oh wait, didn't I say that about another Murakami entry? Oh well. It's fictional 1984 Tokyo with a parallel world and a love story. I didn't love the heavy religious cult elements or how Murakami presents females and love scenes in this, which kept this from being higher on the list. But it made the list because it really fit the bill as a long book to just get lost in. For number 109, I picked War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, published in 1897. This is the original Alien Attacks Earth classic. Over 100 years old, it's still a great read, and you can see very recent reviews of this one on my channel. Number 108 is Under the Dome by Stephen King, published in 2009. A town gets enclosed by an invisible dome, and families are separated. Yes, we care what's going on with the dome, and if it will ever be breached or go away, but the real strength of this story are the characters inside the dome. And Big Jim, he can go himself. You'll definitely get caught up in these characters. Number 107, The Chronoliths by Robert Charles Wilson, published in 2001. Monuments appear that celebrate a past victory, though that victory took place in the future. Buckle up, this is a dystopian fiction thriller with a prolific dose of time travel thrown in. Number 106 is The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, published in 2015. This is a maybe odd one on the list for me. I really liked it, and when I was reading it, it's like a top 50, and then sometimes when I think about it, it's closer to a top 150. I'm almost sort of splitting the difference here with this ranking. It's very enjoyable, but I think where it slips for me a bit is the elements of the book that are more fantastical. That doesn't make it bad, it's just, I don't know, I think with this book I would have preferred it to be more in the science fiction realm. Most intriguing for me was the story centering around the interesting characters, which isn't always what I'm looking for in my science fiction. This will be one for me to reread and do a proper full-length review on, and I'll probably get to that next year. This is the first book of the Broken Earth series. Number 105 is The Power by Naomi Alderman, published in 2016. On one hand, the theme seems a somewhat simplistic gimmick. Girls suddenly develop unusual power and men have to live in fear. On the other hand, this is a deep dive into examining gender roles and identity, power dynamics, and the hard truths about inequality and the world we live in. It's a really powerful read. Number 104 is The City and the City by China Melville, published in 2009. I'm really trying to stick to just blurbs for these, so let's call this a murder mystery detective story. But it's much, much more, really. Two fictional cities occupy the same geographic space. They're really city-states, but if you're from one of the cities, you have to unsee or make unconscious your awareness of the people of the other city. What? If you don't, you're guilty of breaching. I had to reread the first 50 pages twice just to be sure I wasn't looking at a parallel universe or multiple dimensions themes. I recommend going in more, that blind and not knowing anything else about that, and you'll have maximum enjoyment on this one. If you like some mind games in your reading experience, have at this one. For number 103, I selected The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton, published in 1969. Not a critique, but Crichton isn't always the best match for me as far as writing style goes. That's okay as long as all of the other pieces are there. This novel is perfectly engaging with great science and suspense at the right place and the right accessibility. I read this book in my late teens, and it's definitely possible I've given it some nostalgia points to get it this close to the top 100. Another great read is number 102, The Dervish House by Ian MacDonald, published in 2010. Ian MacDonald, on the other hand, really hit the sweet spot for me on writing style. Descriptions of Istanbul are beautiful and tantalizing. The science fiction of this is in the realm of nanobiotech, and there's other future tech goodies here as well. The story is a thriller centering on a bus bombing in Istanbul, and it follows a number of main character point of views alternating between chapters. My next selection on this list is a book I'm actually currently rereading at the moment. This is number 101, Babel 17 by Samuel R. Delaney. This is an excellent read. I will probably have a review on this before this video goes up, so check that out. This was published in 1966. Both maddening and intelligent, the compelling thing in this book by Delaney is the power of language and communication. In this story, a poet is trying to decipher an alien language that might be the key to defeating the alien threat. With Delaney, you can always be sure that after you finish the book, certain things are going to come together for you to spend a lot of time thinking about. We've been at this for quite a while now, but now things are really going to get exciting because now we're into the top 100 science fiction reads of all time. For me, number 100 is The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi. This was published in 2009. This had been presented to me as biopunk, so I thought, sure, let me check that out. I think we're safe enough just calling this solid dystopian. The book dumps you right into the thick of it. This is a world ripped apart by plague and famine. The story is set in Bangkok. This is set in a really dark future where the Monsantos of the world control everything because food, or more specifically calories, are hard to come by. I like the survival story element here, and my personal trainer eye connects to the bioengineering and the calories in, calories out implications. Truth be told, I have two entries for number 100 on this list. I really have 101 on the list of 100, so I'm going to put a tie at 100, and the next one's still going to be number 99. So at number 100, tying The Wind-Up Girl, is Stars in My Pocket Like Grains of Sand by Samuel R. Delaney, published in 1984. I cannot overstate how much my enjoyment of Delaney's work relates to how much reading a page makes me pause. With the book at my lap, I sit back and I think about what I just read. I don't mean sit back and try to figure out what I just read and read through it again. I mean you read it and the ideas are profound or hidden meanings spring forth, and you spend some time with yourself thinking about the ideas, the philosophy, our world, etc. This is one where the initial buy-in is that there's a galactic civilization, it's far future, there's intelligent non-humans, which is the easy hook for me, but the themes that are going to hit you in this are the examinations of socioeconomics, multiculturalism, and sexuality. Number 99 is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, published in 1979. I feel really good about this at number 99, sliding right into the top 100. This is a very unique book in the sci-fi genre with its heavy lean on satire and humor. It's not laugh out loud funny, but it's witty and smart. The initial setting finds the Earth being destroyed to make way for an intergalactic bypass. The quirkiness is hit or miss, as are the witticisms. The hits add up though to a win, and this is a book I think everyone will at least enjoy, if not love. For number 98, I've selected The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is a new release I read earlier this year. It's a debut novel. You can find a review for this on my channel. The main premise is that the main character can travel to different worlds in the multiverse as long as she doesn't have a living doppelganger in a particular world. Many of her doppelgangers are dying or being killed in the other worlds, and that's where the mystery begins. I've been recommending this book a lot to people this year. It was very good. At number 97 is Starship Troopers by Robert A. Heinlein, published in 1959. I'm not generally moved much by the us versus them, rah-rah, military duty and saber rattling. I don't really love it. This one was on the fence for a selection for me because I just barely remembered enough to include it. It's been at least 20 years since I've read it. What I remember I enjoyed though is how I could connect to it and how vivid and striking it was and what it would feel like to be in Johnny's boot camp, his unit in the war against the alien buggers. I recently just read Stranger in a Strange Land, which was on my list, but after I reread it, I took it off the list because I didn't really enjoy it upon reread, and I'm kind of wondering if that's going to happen for me with some of the other Heinlein novels for similar reasons. So do you think Isaac Asimov is on this list? Yes, he is. He's at number 96, Nemesis by Isaac Asimov, published in 1989. This is great science fiction from the master Isaac Asimov. This was a bit more character-driven than a typical Asimov novel, which is fine. It's very good space opera. Even though it isn't his strongest writing, it is definitely an enjoyable intergalactic page-turner. Number 95 is Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor, published in 2014. There is a review of this on my channel as well. This is alien first contact science fiction. This is African futurism science fiction. Unique is that it is set in Nigeria, which is, like all of Africa, definitely underrepresented in the genre. What I like so much about Okorafor is her rich and detailed writing style and her ability to always take us somewhere new with her storytelling unflinchingly, and it works more often than it doesn't. I look forward to what comes next with her because I think her writing has even more room to dazzle us. Number 94 is Quarantine and the Subjective Cosmology Cycle by Greg Egan. This was published in 1992. This is actually a good Egan entry point as it's a little bit more accessible than most of his other work. The story is quick and it features cool science fiction with nanobots that people install in their heads to alter their minds. It's fair to say that in quantum mechanics is where it gets a bit tougher, so when I say accessible, I mean it more relative to other Egan novels. Number 93 is a lovely book. This is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, published in 2014. This is really feel-good space opera science fiction with great alien races, neat diverse characters and relationships, and strong and positive messages about existence. Coming in at 92 is The Great North Road by Peter F. Hamilton, published in 2012. I love long books, especially when they're great. This one is great, but it probably would have been helped by some editing. Hamilton, not surprisingly, handles all things alien, astrophysics, and cloning related brilliantly. I don't think I was supposed to get flashbacks to Via Straylight and Neuromancer from this, but I like that I did for at least a brief second. It's really nothing like Neuromancer, so I don't want to confuse anybody. It's more police procedural murder mystery science fiction. I'm not sure what I did with my N.K. Jemisin books, 5th season, and The City We Became. Oh yeah, The City We Became is number 91. I don't know where that book is, so I'm not going to show it to you. I'll show it to you up here. Published in 2020. I waver on the degree to which I consider this science fiction, but I'm making the call to include it, and it belongs in the top 100 since I am. I'm more clear about my enjoyment of this than my waffling on the 5th season. In this story, 5 avatars, or people who embody the city representing 5 boroughs of New York, face down a threat. The idea is that the cities are living, breathing things. There's a lot of New York cliche in this, and Jemisin hits a lot of old tropes, ones that I like, most especially strangers coming together to face a common foe, and it all works. The characters are very diverse, and they feel very fresh and socially conscious, and frankly, I appreciate the LGBTQ representation. Jemisin is a born storyteller. For number 90, we're coming back to Stanislaw Lem, Fiasco. This is a great journey of interstellar travel to the planet Quintel. Lem delivers great sci-fi with time distortion, aliens, and AI. There's a lot in this that is dark, and Lem posits a cynical or lugubrious philosophical view of first contact and aliens that are just maybe not that into us. Number 89 is Aurora by Kim Stanley Robinson, published in 2015. This was an oh wow, I mean really, oh wow novel for me. The best parts of it are in the spoilers, so I'm going to leave you with this. This is a great book if you love science fiction that centers on space exploration and colonization themes, AI consciousness, and attempts to be hard science fiction. Can you guess where we're going for number 88? Any idea? Are you catching on to the game? Number 88 is Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, published in 1961. This is a book that evokes my emotions so viscerally, it's gonna make my top 100, obviously. Lem reaches inside of you and makes you think deeply about our own reality or human condition and our authenticity, how we see ourselves fitting into the world or the universe. In the novel, Lem does this using the story of a research team on the planet Solaris, studying and testing a large ocean that covers most of the planet. Surely you've guessed by now, and if you watch my channel you already know, I love the classics. Number 87 for me is going to be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. This was published in 1872. An assumed sea monster is terrorizing ships in the ocean, and French biologist Pierre and his small crew are going to hunt it down. Along the way, they have a wild adventure, they run into Captain Nemo, and they discover some super advanced technology for the time. This book is special to me because of my love of science fiction is vast, and one of my driving interests stems from the idea that space is the great unexplored, and a belief that there is so much we can't comprehend that could be out there, but also so much to be imagined. 20,000 Leagues delivers this feel, though in the ocean, rather than space. And in Verne's day, the ocean was the great unexplored with potential for wild discovery. Now let's play a game where, you know the one where you have to guess the book just by looking at its cover? You know what, this one, this one's missing the cover. Seriously though, this is number 86, Binti by Nnedi Okorafor, published in 2015. These covers are actually really nice, so I'm going to show you some of the other in the series here. I'm having trouble thinking of any novella series that I liked as much as I liked the Binti series. Okorafor has quickly become one of my favorite new authors since discovering her work 5 years ago. For as short as the books are, they really pack a lot in. I've now used up most of the allotted blurb time on these, so let's just say that Binti is the first himba person accepted to a prestigious university, and she has to travel across the galaxy to make it there against an alien threat, the Meduse. At number 85, we are lightening things up a little bit again, and we're going to go with Red Shirts by John Scalzi. This was published in 2012. This is, I think, a good spot on the list for some fun and some humor. This satire plays with the idea that we've all made fun of on Star Trek, the idea that every time that Kirk and Spock or whoever are on an away mission, a lowly red-shirted crew member ends up dead, but never the main cast. It's funny seeing the crew members who are aware of this and how they act, and the efforts to figure out why it's happening. It's not consistently funny throughout the book, but it's humorous, and I laughed more than once. Classics, you say? I say. Number 84, another classic, Mission of Gravity by Hal Clement. This was published in 1953. Interesting notions of gravity, chemistry, and physics in general make this a standout among 1950s science fiction. I think Hal Clement and the oceans of the oddly shaped planet Mesklin, I think, prepared me for my eventual love affair for the Greg Egan catalog. At number 83, I went with The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury, another one of my favorite authors. This was published in 1951. Like another Bradbury classic, The Martian Chronicles, this is a collection of short stories tied together with a common theme. The Illustrated Man is a wandering carnival worker with some wild tattoos. This being Bradbury, we get a lot of integral Mars stuff too. Number 82 is a wondrous book. This is 2001: A Space Odyssey by Arthur C. Clarke. 2001 is often called the perfect science fiction story. It's not exactly that to me, according to this list, I suppose, but it is great, and for me, Clarke's best writing. It's a very absorbing tale of evolution, space, exploration, and technology. I almost couldn't find this one, but I did want to show this cover for number 81, More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon. It's just such a weird cover, this one. This was published in 1954. Sturgeon is such a brilliant writer. For me, he's similar to Bradbury that I can read whatever he writes because of how poetic the prose is. More Than Human is not just great prose, it also delivers. It's a strange, in a good way, story about 6 people with interesting powers who mesh, or I think it was called blesh, meshing and blending together to create one being. Despite being much more than 50 years old, it's still a great read today. My Ancillary Justice book, on the other hand, I don't know where that is, so I'm just going to tell you number 80 is Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie, published in 2013. This is the first book of an excellent trilogy. This is vast space opera. The story centers on the main character, Breck, who's an ancillary, which is sort of like a human body avatar for an AI from a spaceship. The story follows Breck on her revenge mission against those responsible for destroying her ship and bringing them to justice. Really unique in the book is the purposeful confusion around gender stereotypes, as the only gender pronouns used are she and her. Very interesting. Number 79 is this bad boy, Cryptonomicon by Neil Stevenson, published in 1999. It doesn't matter that character development needs work and the wording is a bit overboard and it's barely science fiction. The narrative and the themes are excellent. This is one of the best books I've read dealing with themes of cryptography theory and mathematics, and I only really dock it for some eye-roll-worthy masculinity moments with some of the characters. One of the primary storylines is a World War II codebreaker storyline, so if the cryptocurrency doesn't grab you, maybe that does. My selection for number 78 is Pattern Recognition by William Gibson, published in 2003. Sticking with borderline barely science fiction designation, Pattern Recognition is set in mostly present-day London and a bit of New York and a little bit of Tokyo. The predictive elements here from Gibson are internet culture, the evolution of the digital world, branding, and the phenomenon of viral videos. Gibson's writing is as elegant as ever with evocative collisions of globalization, information overload, marketing strategies, and internet forums. Number 77 is Chasm City by Alistair Reynolds, published in 2001. Reynolds is on fire here. The main plot centers on a once utopian city that is transformed as it's infected by a plague that affects not only buildings and computers, but also the people. There is a dark subplot that features a generational ship for a centuries-long trek to colonize a new world. So of course we have many on the ship in hibernation. A lot of stuff happens on this trip. There are very dark themes, it's suspenseful, and there are plot twists galore. I think my hands even got sore at one point from holding the book open so long because I was unable to put it down. How about some Bruce Sterling at number 76 for Schismatrix, or as I like to call it, Schismatrix. Bruce Sterling, published 1985. Packed with ideas, Schismatrix is completely visionary. There's post-humanist futuristic worlds, a multitude of races, and a taste of cyberpunk in this very entertaining and shocking space opera. Number 75, The Red, First Light, The Red Trilogy, written by Linda Nagata, published in 2013. This is really great military science fiction. It's a political thriller. This is a book I was on the edge of my seat the whole time reading it. It's not a lie back and relax one by any means. At number 74, we're going back to Stephen King. Number 74 is The Stand. This is another blurry lines, barely science fiction, but for this list, it's science fiction for me. It's an amazing novel by King. A deadly virus gets out and kills most of the population. The story follows different groups of survivors and how they confront each other. Of course, we get to see how the virus got out and spread and what happens after. This is definitely one of my favorite Stephen King novels. Number 73, Parable of the Sower, Octavia Butler, published in 1993. Wow, how much of this story feels like 2020? This novel is solidly in the class of dystopia that feels likely and is therefore chilling. The main character, Lauren, is a teenage girl with uber empathy. Social disorder is prolific and bred from climate change, wealth inequality, and disease. There are strong religious themes in this book. Lauren finds her own form of spirituality, born from the chaos around her, and she becomes a sort of prophet. At number 72 is The Man in the High Castle by Philip K. Dick, published in 1962. This classic Philip K. Dick novel imagines what it might be like if the US had lost World War II and the Nazis and the Japanese divided up the United States. And then it gets all science-y fiction-y up in here. Dick's rewrite of history is masterful and convincing. Number 71 is Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. This was published in 2003. Even if this wasn't for me a believable post-apocalyptic dystopia, Atwood compelled me to really think about how humanity is moved by cultural shifts and to look at how we think about family, genetics, culture, sex, and romance. It's a really fascinating read. Now we're into the top 70. We get another wardrobe change, some foreshadowing. Number 70 is Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut, published in 1963. The narrator, John, is a writer, and he's researching the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and the scientists who developed the bomb. In a weird way, this called to mind the mantra from Slaughterhouse-Five, accept the things you cannot change, as there is this particle Ice-9 also created by one of the Hiroshima bomb scientists. This particle, just by touching a body of water of any size, is capable of immediately freezing it. This has a potential to wreck the world. The novel is full of black humor and uses sarcasm to fuel the satire of technology and innovation and religion. Number 69, Red Mars by Kim Stanley Robinson, published in 1992. We also have some sequels in this trilogy. We've got Green Mars and Blue Mars. The Earth sends a group of 100 men and women to begin colonizing Mars. Robinson focuses the plot on the dynamic relationship between the colonists, debates surrounding terraforming, considerations for the relationship to the Earth they all have left behind, and then what's actually going on Earth. Robinson's imagination of this world is just impressive. The world he builds and the characters are very convincing, and much of it sticks with you long after the final page. At number 68 is The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, published in 1955. If you like time travel science fiction, this is a great book for me to recommend to you. It's here at my spot at 68. I really enjoyed this. I do have a review up on my channel, so check that out. This follows Andrew Harlan, who is an Eternal. He is a timer. Eternals, who are in eternity, which sort of parallels regular or normal reality, they are sort of like these time cops that make sure that normal reality isn't screwing things up, and they make little adjustments along the way to make sure that they follow the path that eternity deems for them to follow. Harlan meets this woman, Noyes, and this is a really intense relationship, and it has the potential to wreck eternity. Check that book out. I highly recommend it. Check out my review on it as well. Number 67 is The Martian by Andy Weir. This was published in 2011. Mark Watney, along with his crew, are the first people to walk on Mars. He gets stranded there, left and presumed dead. The story follows his survival and his hope to be rescued. This was a great read and was really fun following Whatley continuing to rise to the occasion to meet every obstacle in his path. Number 66 is Ringworld by Larry Niven, published in 1970. This was one of the greatest books I ever read when I read it the first time decades ago. It didn't stand up as well, mostly some inconsistent writing and terribly written female characters upon reread a few years back. The size and scope of the book and my nostalgia for it landed here around the 60 to 70 tier for me. My selection for number 65 is To Your Scattered Bodies Go by Philip Jose Farmer. This was published in 1971. This is the first book of Farmer's epic Riverworld saga. The story is basically a fantasy about resurrection. After you die, you end up at a river that's millions of miles long. Scattered Bodies is totally absorbing, and if you let it, your brain can really go down the rabbit hole. For me, someone who's often fascinated and perplexed with questions about what comes after death and what is the meaning of life, relevant to that, this twisted it for me to think about not just, but also, what if you never die or you never end? What is the meaning of life then? Number 64 is Wool by Hugh Howey, published in 2011. I typically enjoy dystopia, as you can tell from this list, but it usually isn't a page turner like this one was. Also kind of unique, much of the story takes place in an underground bunker because it's toxic outside. The mood here is isolation, distrust, and paranoia, and is done very well. I'll recommend this if you like a dystopian environment and you're really in the mood for suspense and surprises. At number 63 is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. This was published in 2010. This one is a mix of fantasy and science fiction, absolutely. The main character is a dynamic young woman, Onya Sonwoo. She is the child of rape, and her post-apocalyptic Sudanese village is being decimated. She has magical powers, and she must extol justice and conquer an evil that's trying to kill her. The story shines a spotlight on many difficult issues like ethnic cleansing, genocide, rape, spirituality, and female circumcision. This was really powerful writing from Okorafor. For number 62, I'm going with Down Below Station by C.J. Chera. This was published in 1981. This is another great space opera with the focus not so much on the space or the science fiction, but more on the characters, the political intrigue, and relationships. There's an interstellar war and a space battle, but the spotlight is on the people. It's intense, gritty, and epic. At number 61, I'm going to start off showing you this signed first edition copy of Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So this is number 61, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is the edition I actually read from. This is a 2021 new release. This was a great 2021 read where a junior high school teacher is sent off to space to find a solution to an extinction level event that threatens the Earth. The dialogue feels real, not overdone, just real. and there's a really great relationship in the story that I think most people are going to really enjoy. I think this novel has broad appeal, just like The Martian, and I think it's an easy one to confidently recommend to folks who are newer to science fiction. A little bit more Dick here at number 60, Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said by Philip K. Dick, published in 1974. I'm going to call this exaggerated dystopian, and this is a lane where PKD truly shines. This is haunting and not too distant future. We have a police state following a second civil war. Not unfamiliar with Dick, he strikes an existential chord and social themes, politics, identity, and objective realities. The celebrity main character in the story is a great vehicle to use to examine these themes. Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park is number 59. This was published in 1990. Crichton brings dinosaurs back to life on a private island, and we get to see mayhem ensue and the consequences of toying with Mother Nature. I was hooked throughout. The movie and the film franchise are really good, but they pale in comparison to this novel. The death scenes are jarring and brutal. This is full-on action and suspense. Number 58 is Caliban's War and the Expanse series. This is written by James S.A. Corey, the writing team of Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. That's their pen name. This was published in 2011 to present. Chibola Burn and Tiamat's Wrath are other favorites in this series. The Expanse begins with Leviathan wakes in our solar system. Mars, the moon, the asteroid belt, they're all settled. There's a missing girl storyline, a mysterious alien protomolecule, and strong political tension between Earth, Mars, and the Belters. This is a very accessible series and another set of books that I think are easy to recommend to readers new to science fiction that maybe avoid the genre because they don't want to wade through figuring out what they might consider to be cumbersome science. So I'm choosing Caliban's War at 58, and that's going to represent the entire Expanse series. For number 57, I chose The Reality Dysfunction by Peter F. Hamilton. This was published in 1996. This is the first book of the Night's Dawn trilogy. I haven't gotten to the sequels yet, but I will. I mean, this thing was like 1,200 pages, so I'll get to those eventually. Hamilton never fails at giant and imaginative world and universe building. In Reality Dysfunction, he gives me all of the good stuff I like, a far future, high-tech universe space opera, space colonization, and a genuine sense of wonder. And stuff I didn't even know that I wanted. Sentient spaceships and planets, the release of a violent alien race, and horror. Number 56 is Anathem by Neil Stephenson. This one's published in 2008. I like books that make me feel like a math nerd, or at least like I would fit in with the math nerds. In this world, scientists and academics are basically, for sake of brevity here, sequestered away from the rest of society until some events conspire with unexpected visitors. This is a masterful philosophical novel by Stevenson. I couldn't locate my copy of A Scanner Darkly for this next one, so I'm going to show you two Italian copies of these Philip K. Dick novels. We've got The Game Players of Titan, and we've got The Martian Time Slip, both of these in Italian. There's no rules against that, right? You didn't say anything when I showed you two of the same copies of Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So number 55 is A Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. This was published in 1977. A Scanner Darkly is set in Orange County, and it's about drug culture, centering on a fictional drug, Substance D. Of course, drug addiction isn't a good thing. Substance D can make you think you're being infested or attacked by bugs crawling all over you and biting you. One of the characters is an undercover cop who ends up having this same altered reality, and we have this constant tension over his cover possibly being blown, as well as watching what the drug is doing to him. The story is very compelling. Hey. My eyes are up here. But down here, The Time Machine. Number 54 is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. This was published all the way back in 1895. Does anybody not know this book? This is my favorite H.G. Wells book. We get to time travel nearly 1,000,000 years into the future. This is a classic that anyone can enjoy. I can read this every few years and I never get tired of it. You know who this is good to recommend to? People who like time travel tropes. Number 53, Metro 2033 by Dmitry Glukovsky. Not surprisingly, this is set in 2033. This is post-apocalyptic fiction. Due to nuclear radiation from war, people live under Moscow in the metro. On the surface, there's, let's call them creatures and all kinds of shenanigans going on, but it's uninhabitable for humans. What's really cool in this book is how each metro station has become its own town with its own developing culture. This is what makes the book great. There's also a really popular video game that's based off of this novel, if that excites you. At number 52 is The Running Man by Stephen King, published in 1982. This book is incredibly underrated. I don't often think that dystopian fiction is one of my top interests, but I do seem to have populated this list with quite a bit of it. This is life and death struggle. It's like matching reality TV with gladiator battles of the future. Stephen King originally wrote this under his former pen name pseudonym, Richard Bachman. Number 51 is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was published in 2015. An element of science fiction I love is imagination into what an alien race might look like if it evolved from birds or insects or whatever. Juxtapose this to my cynicism for science fiction where aliens look like dogs, dinosaurs, birds, or bugs, and you gotta really do it right for me to enjoy it. Tchaikovsky lands on the latter for me, and this was a great read. There are two interesting stories, one with an alien spider setting, and the other with humans fleeing a wrecked Earth and dealing with conflict, mutiny, possible deranged AI, and more. And Peter F. Hamilton likes it. He said the smartest evolutionary world building you'll ever read. Now, he's on the front too. And he also said this is really smart science fiction. So he must have really liked this sucker. Walter M. Miller's A Canticle for Leibowitz is number 50. This was published in 1959. This is a post-apocalyptic world setting where civilization has mostly collapsed. There's a setting here of a Catholic monastery, and while it's not necessary, it is somewhat helpful to have some rudimentary awareness of Catholicism and monks. The ingenious structure to the storytelling effectively drives home a theme of our propensity towards self-destruction. This is not one to go to for action and adventure, but where it delivers is the themes of hope in a dark world and with pretty dark views of humanity, written beautifully. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is number 49, published in 1818. This is an old one. A scientist who hates his life creates a monster out of body parts and brings it to life. He wants to be viewed as a god. The creature rampages and kills, but he's still a sympathetic character. A profound examination of humanity makes this a timeless classic. This is, of course, a worthwhile read because of its impact on the genre and the influence that it carries even today, but also because it's a well-told and very deep story that offers so much more than I think that most readers are going to expect from it. Peter Watts' Blind Sight is number 48. This was published in 2006. Genetic engineering, future Earth, first contact, and potential alien threats in outer space. Vampires! Normally vampires is my cue to walk away, but I'm glad I didn't because this is a massive dive into my consciousness and a thoroughly painful yet satisfying one. Reader beware on this one. There's a lot here and it can be complicated to grab onto everything that Watts throws at the reader. Because there's a lot to process and most of it comes together only later in the book, it's probably something that you want to read when you're going to have a really good chunk of time to maybe stay focused on it. I could have done without the vampire race, but it is still an impressive and, yes, very enjoyable read. Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11 drops into the list at number 47. This was published in 2014. In the darkness, there can be beauty. This is a dystopian setting in which 99% of the world has died from a pandemic. This is a very character-driven story of the survivors. It's a great book, and the story is a bit of a slow pace. This works for the novel as it's a well-told story that, despite being a dark setting, is still enjoyable to explore. Witnessing the pain of survival can be bleak, but in this book, you can still find beauty and optimism, and that's a real achievement of the writing. Number 46 is Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was published in 2021. This is full-on space opera by Tchaikovsky. I've suggested this book to a number of friends this year, and the reason I did so is because it brings to the table action, a cast of diverse characters that end up on a few different unusual worlds, evoking some Star Wars types vibes, maybe a little bit. The main conflict in the story centers on these moon-sized entities called the Architects that are destroyers of worlds. It's not clear at first why they're destroying the worlds, but you can be certain that the interesting cast of characters that I told you about is going to be right in the middle of it. The first half of the book takes a little bit of work to get connected to the characters, but luckily there is a glossary in the back of the book that can really help you along the way. The payoff is that in the second half of the book, it's a definite page turner. At number 45 is The Forever War by Joel Haldeman. This was published in 1974. I'm a captive audience when it comes to well-done time dilation in my science fiction. This is less combat than you would think, given the title. It's the stuff around life affected by the travel time and time dilation issues that make this so good. I keep this one in my holster ready to fire off when I hear, what's a good entry point or first read for getting into science fiction? This one is quick, easy, still deep, and good. The more generic description of this, since it's worth knowing the basic premise going in, is that humans are at war with an alien race thousands of light years away. Due to time dilation, a 2-year tour for a soldier is almost 30 years passing on Earth. At number 44 is Old Man's War by John Scalzi. This was published in 2005, and apparently I enjoy my war-centric stuff in the 40 to 50 tier. The protagonist, John, is 75 years old in a world where the Earth is no longer that impressive, and humans battle aliens for claims to the new, few coveted other planets that everybody wants. The deal is that at retirement age, because we value wisdom and experience, you can join the Colonial Defense Force and fight at the front lines. Fret not, you get a younger and upgraded physiology. If you survive your tour, the rewards are great. If you don't, well, you're not around to care anyway. There's so much more to it than just this, and I think that this is one where it's best to discover it for yourself. It's also another one that I put on this list of easy to recommend as an entry point to new readers of science fiction looking for war and battle type science fiction. I should also mention there are more books to the series, but the original is really the star here. At number 43 is a memory called Empire by Arkady Martin. This was published in 2019. Mahit, the main character, is investigating what happened to her predecessor, who has died mysteriously, and with sort of the help of the predecessor, she wants to make sure that she doesn't meet the same fate. What was most fascinating for me in this novel were the major themes on language and culture. I think that this one might rank slightly higher on my best written science fiction list than on my most enjoyed science fiction, though I obviously like this a lot. Number 42, Judas Unchained, from the Commonwealth Saga, written by Peter F. Hamilton, published in 2005. This is actually the second book of the Commonwealth Saga, following Pandora's Star, but this will, I guess, represent both of them. This represents the saga on the list because it was the more superior novel for me, though I think that Pandora's would slide into this same tier on the list also. It definitely helps that Pandora gave us 900 pages of character development and initial world building. Judas Unchained, therefore, could focus on the main conflict and the climax and lots more action. This is magnificent space opera with a complex plot that could easily be in my top 20 if I write this list on a different day. The saga begins in far future 2238, and we've discovered wormhole technology, and we commute through these wormholes via train to hundreds of planets, and you can also imagine that this means we're also going to meet some aliens. Judas Unchained is some of Hamilton's best writing, and it's the novel that solidified him as one of my favorite modern authors. Number 41 is Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. This was published in 1965. This is a brilliant novel by Vonnegut, much more about the terror of war and the trauma after. Much of this relies on flashbacks to bombings in Dresden during World War II. Vonnegut draws from his real-life experience as inspiration for much of the book, making it very personal. I read this last year, and it's one of the earlier reviews that I've posted on this channel, so viewer beware of some suspect lighting and not so great audio on that particular video. This novel features a mantra very significant and visceral to me that begins with, paraphrased, "I will accept the things that I cannot change and have the courage to change the things I can and hope for the wisdom to always tell the difference." The sci-fi aspects of the novel are suspect, so you read this for its message and to bear witness to it, not really for a science fiction fix. So it goes. At number 40 is The Diamond Age by Neal Stephenson. This was published in 1995. Stephenson is all in with amazing and inventive nanotechnology and other wild technology in this absolute page-turner. Well, at least for the first half. The world building is really precise, and as to be expected with Stephenson, the vocabulary is elevated. I've mentioned before that one of the great benefits of reading, for me, is expanding my vocabulary. This fits the bill. Beyond the exciting nanotech, there's a coming-of-age story as the central plot. Diamond Age is cyberpunk or post-cyberpunk. There's themes of tribalism and cultural associations, hive consciousness stuff, more of Stevenson's encryption ideas, a good dose of adventure, AI stuff, and rebellion. What do you think? At number 39 is Octavia Butler's Kindred. And I've got this nice Folio Society edition to show you here. Octavia Butler published this in 1979. I first read this in 1996 in college, and I'm therefore due for a reread of it next year. This is a hard one to place accurately on the list, as it's been more than 20 years since I've read it. My memories remind me that I love the story of an African-American woman in modern day being transported back to slavery era in the South and forming a connection with the son of a ruthless slave owner. I'm going to be curious to see where I rank this after I do this reread next year. Also, when I read this the first time, I read it as part of a college course on African American history. So while enjoying the reading experience, I was viewing it as a student with an academic agenda. It's going to be fun to reread this and see it with different eyes the next time around. Number 38 is Permutation City by Greg Egan. This was published in 1994. Take humanity themes from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and dump in about 1,000% more metaphysics and mathematics into your what does it mean to be human curriculum. Instead of androids, we get copies or simulations of people. Egan lays it out. If we can copy everything, the brain, every neurotransmitter sent from the brain, if it can be uploaded into a virtual space, is the simulation basically human? And then what happens when these virtual copies become self-aware? What if they can't handle being a copy? Can virtual reality be made the actual reality? How about this at number 37? Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. This was published in 1968. I think a lot of people know that the movie Blade Runner was based off of this book. Rick Deckard is a bounty hunter hunting androids. Dick gives us a lot to think about, most especially the big question that I love in this type of science fiction. What does it mean to be human? Dick brilliantly doesn't give an answer, but presents Deckard and these androids as a vehicle for us to contemplate it. This is a bit of deja vu from the last entry. That actually makes me feel good about my accuracy of ranking books by my enjoyment level, that I have these two right next to each other on the list. And I'm only now recognizing the why behind it, but of course it makes sense. At number 36, I went with Kurt Vonnegut and the Sirens of Titan. This was published in 1959. In this story, America's richest man is getting the opportunity to travel to, as well as being sent to Mars and Mercury, the Saturnian moon Siren. There's so many twists and turns in this book. We see him at his peak, and we see him at his lowest. The humor and satire are dark, and maybe the most brilliant by Vonnegut is how the seriousness and the humor exist in tandem. In that coexistence, he is treating hilariously the sad and depressing. Sounding redundant, here is yet another theme that draws from the accept that which you cannot change mantra that I discussed relative to the other two Vonnegut novels on this list. Who let the dogs out? Werner Vinge did, because at number 35, I've got Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Vinge. This was published in 1992. Technically, there aren't any dogs in this, but close enough. Multiple alien races, multiple settings. The primary setting is an alien world with animalian inhabitants with pack mentality. There's deceit and espionage. We have humans and also other interesting alien races. Fire Upon the Deep also gives us highly advanced beings and worlds, and then we get really great build up to worlds collide suspense. I really like how successfully Vinji sets things up so that we can't sit comfortable thinking that the good guys are just going to prevail. He really stacks the odds and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. This is a book that presents a challenge early on for the reader to get their bearings with what's going on and what the different worlds and races look like. It's worth the legwork. This is very original, it's very exciting, and it's very well written science fiction. Number 34. Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. This was published in 1959. This is the story of Charlie, a man of very low IQ who undergoes a procedure to gain extremely high IQ. What I liked most about this book, beyond just the emotional roller coaster and tugging at my heartstrings, is how it shines a light on the masks that we wear when it comes to how we treat those who are different from ourselves, and it reveals the masks we wear hiding our authentic selves or posing. Pretty much everyone in the book wears some kind of a mask or displays some sort of a facade. The science fiction here is that procedure that alters the human IQ. While they can't all be beautiful covers, I do have this copy here of The Mote in God's Eye by Jerry Pournelle and Larry Niven. This is coming in at number 33 on the list. This was published in 1974. Who doesn't love the Moties? And why isn't this in the top 10? It could be, and it wouldn't be wrong. This is great first contact science fiction. It has great aliens, space travel, time travel, all the good stuff. At number 32, The Dispossessed by Ursula Le Guin, published in 1974. This is master literature and a work of art. Le Guin paints an idea of a utopia, which is of course flawed and provokes a lot of thought about socioeconomic issues and humanity. This is one of the few novels on the list that has won both the Hugo and the Nebula Award. Le Guin is another of my favorite authors, and part of that has to deal with the fact that everything you read from her is solid, and it's basically guaranteed it will be a win. There will be story, there will be characters, and there will be very deep insights. Show of hands, who can guess what number 31 is? That's right, it's Ubik by Philip K. Dick, published in 1969. There's so many great things in this novel. In my estimation, Dick's best work. I don't know if you need anything more than psychics or inertials, stopping other psychics from corporate espionage, alternate realities, which can be reversed using a substance called Ubik, and cryogenics. But if you do, Dick delivers a thriller, satire, and horror, and much more in this mind twister. Dick seems to always deliver the existentialism and forces us to ask questions that, to our benefit, he will not answer for us. Number 30 is The Stars, My Destination by Alfred Bester, published in 1957. Possibly the most unlikable protagonist in any story I've read, Gully Foyle is hell-bent on revenge. This is a brilliantly imagined and written story. In this future world, everyone can teleport or jaunt using their minds. It's a story about revenge, but Bester throws in one thing after another, and the entire book is captivating. There's definitely some fantastical elements in the book, but this is firmly science fiction. Originally published as Tiger Tiger, this is definitely off the beaten path science fiction, and a book I find myself recommending to science fiction lovers quite often. Number 29 is Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. This was published in 2000. I love space opera where faster than light travel gets us to wild places, opening up the whole universe, but I really love when interstellar travel is accomplished at almost light speed travel. That little tweak is more limiting, but it really sets the tone for a novel where the believability factor enhances the story, especially the technology, the different factions of humans and aliens, quantum entanglement and xenoarchaeology. Revelation Space, the first in a terrific series, is unpredictable and epic. Number 28 is Contact by Carl Sagan. This was published in 1985. This is one of the great first contact books of all time. What makes it so special is how real the alien side of that equation feels. The movie version of this book, starring Jodie Foster, is likewise a phenomenal film. Novel and film both succeed at nurturing and evolving the sense of awe and adventure that science fiction so often gives us fans of the genre. At number 27 is Red Rising of the Red Rising Saga, written by Pierce Brown in 2014. This series introduces Darrow, a 16-year-old protagonist working underground on a Mars where society, the people, are divided into different color groups. The reds are the lowest caste and the golds are the highest. Grays are law enforcement, etc. What makes the book and the series so enjoyable is how more ideas, shocking twists, huge dramatic actions fit into a story that doesn't seem to have enough pages to hold it all. Once it gets going, there's so much happening on every page, and it seems that anything can happen. This is a series that I think is easy to recommend to readers because it's so accessible and it's just such a breeze to dive in and tear through. This is not one where worlds and tech are going to have big learning curve or slow the reading process. Number 26 is Neal Stephenson's Snow Crash. This is one of the coolest science fiction novels ever. On a different day, this might be on my top 10. Even now, it feels like a sin to not have it on my top 20. This is cyberpunk science fiction, though it also crosses genres, including elements of parody. One of the coolest protagonists, an unlikely hero, is, wait for it, hero protagonist, along with yours truly. That's also a character name. They drive this great mystery with really great futuristic concepts, dipping or diving into language, religion, the mafia, corporations, and virtual reality far beyond post-internet metaverse. I feel like if I recommended this book to 10 people, 5 of them are going to end up telling me it's their new favorite book. Number 25 is Diaspora, and as you can see, this one's pretty self-explanatory. No, it's not. Number 25, Diaspora by Greg Egan. This was published in 1997. This one is wild. Egan even invents new laws or theories of physics in this mind bender. One of these theories involves particle wormholes and geometry in 6 dimensions. The novel presents wholly original ideas in transhumanism and AI, virtual reality with disembodied beings, theoretical math, nanotech, gender neutrality, and human consciousness. Is it contradictory for me to say that I had to think and work hard at this book and also say that I loved every minute of it? No, it's not. The book is extraordinary. Number 24 is 1984 by George Orwell. This was published in 1949. For a full review of this, definitely watch the review of this book that I have on my channel. This is a dystopian future where the ruling party and government demand complete obedience, even to the point of mandating how you think. Orwell perfectly terrifies us with the imagining of how brutal the future is, that you can even be betrayed by your own body language and in your most private moments. Remember, Big Brother is watching. If he is indeed watching, he's gonna see another Bradbury classic coming in at number 23. Number 23, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This was published in 1953. Guy Montag is a fireman, which in this dystopian future means he starts fires. Owning books is illegal, and if you own them, they and your home are incinerated. In so many ways, the story is very simple and plain, but in its simplicity carried a huge message about government censorship and blindly following authority, as well as an admonishing of society being willfully ignorant and illiterate in favor of the distraction and entertainment of things like television and other media. And I just adore Bradbury's poetic prose. Number 22, Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This was published in 1932. This is Aldous Huxley's imagining of a future where contentment, consumption, and social stability are valued above all else. In this dystopian future, individuality does not exist. Everyone belongs to everyone else. Huxley presents a great warning about the unchecked power of the state and complacency over who has the power and how that power is wielded. For me, this is one of the most important works of art that the genre has to offer, and for that reason, it's super enjoyable. Number 21, Spin by Robert Charles Wilson, published in 2005. The Earth becomes enshielded, that might very possibly not be a real word, in a barrier that slows time on Earth to a point where the universe is aging about 100 million years for each Earth year. The enjoyment in the novel is our desire to find out how this is happening and who's behind it. I think the only reason that I don't have this on the top 10 is because at the day that I wrote this list, I think I remembered it being a little bit of a slow burn at the beginning, but it could easily be a top 10 if I rewrite the list tomorrow. I'm not going to do that. Are you crazy? Anyway, the stars disappeared from the sky, and the rest of the book is a masterpiece. I'm not going to pretend that we don't see what's going on here, but we'll get to that in a little bit. At this point in the list, anything in the top 20 could easily be in the top 10, and it would still feel right. If I uploaded my brain into the AI from Children of Time, and I had it run thousands of simulations of my top 150 list, several of the outcomes would have Xixing Lu's Death's End at number 5 or number 6. Sounds crazy, right? Right. Now we're in the right frame of mind to think about this book. Some of the writing suffers in this conclusion of the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, but this is one that's not to be missed. This is an epic, epic conclusion to the trilogy. It's mind-blowing, brilliant, dark, captivating. Watch my review of the book for more of those types of adjectives. There's mind-numbing descriptions of 4-dimensional space and 2-dimensional space. It's complex, magical, there's time dilation, pocket dimensions, and even a doomsday button. Number 19 is Shield's Ladder by Greg Egan. This is published in 2002. The premise centers around a scientific accident that creates an expanding vacuum in space, enveloping planets and anything else in its path. There are a group of scientists that are content and eager to study the phenomenon, and then there's another group that are actively trying to terminate it. I couldn't understand half of the physics or quantum mechanics and quantum gravity, and this far future world has zero resemblance to our own, and none of that dampened my enjoyment of the novel. Clearly. At number 18 is Gene Wolfe's The Shadow of the Torturer. This is the first volume of the Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe, published in 1980. Quick on the setup for this, the main character is Severin. He is a torturer. He's exiled from the Torturers Guild for having compassion on a woman that he has affection for, and he lets her kill herself. So he's banished, and we follow his adventures in very interesting places and other characters along the way. This is set in far, far future Earth, though it feels like a medieval setting. He becomes a king, and he's also the narrator of a story, speaking of his life in a memoir sort of way, taking into account that he is insane, self-admittedly. It's quite unique to say the least. To call Severin an unreliable narrator is a huge understatement. Deceitful narrator might be the best way to put it. The books of this series are needed together to fully feel the story. For the places this book took me and the absolute gorgeous writing, this easily falls into my top 20. Left Hand of Darkness. Number 17, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. This was published in 1969. It wouldn't be wrong to put this in my top 10, but today it sits here at number 18. This story sticks with me long after I've read it. On its surface, the story is not that riveting. Two very different individuals overcoming distrust and forming a bond through a dangerous journey across a treacherous and icy terrain on the planet Gethin. But it somehow reaches down into your soul and it doesn't let go. This is my go-to recommendation for those who tell me that they're going to try science fiction, but science fiction isn't really their thing or it's not literary enough for them, whatever. This book was groundbreaking in its time for gender conversations that it evokes. Gethenians are at different times, different genders. While that's interesting, focusing on that really buries the lead about what makes the story great. Number 16, The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov, published in 1972. This is Asimov delivering solid science with compelling fiction. He has us drawing seemingly limitless energy from a parallel universe, which may just result in the Earth's destruction. The ideas only get more intriguing and wild from there, and Asimov delivers fantastic aliens and really paints a great image of the other universe. As per usual with Asimov, the ideas and philosophy are always riveting. This book makes you think, and you appreciate it and enjoy it more because of that. If you've been with me the whole time on this list, you're seeing a lot of Egan and Asimov, and it's no mistake. These are two very different authors and very different writing styles, though The Gods Themselves is a good reminder that Egan definitely shows signs of Asimov's influence. I haven't read this one in decades, and I can't wait to reread it and enjoy it all over again. Reader beware, this is a story that jumps around a little bit, but not in any way that's jarring. Number 15 is Ender's Shadow and the entire Shadow series. This is written by Orson Scott Card and published in 1999. This is a phenomenal companion series to the Ender's Game series. This series follows Bean. He's one of the secondary characters from the Ender's series. This could easily be in the top 10, but so could 30 other titles on this list, so I popped it in here. Much of the series is parallel to the events of the Ender's series. It's really impressive how it feels like its own real thing, and it's not just a retelling of the Ender's Game from a different angle. The character of Bean and also the greater focus in this series on Ender's siblings, especially his complicated brother Peter, are great improvements to the Ender universe. I've got some more Asimov for you at number 14. This is Foundation's Edge by Isaac Asimov. This was published in 1982. At this point in the video, I have to think that you're getting a real feel for the type of reader that I am. I love talking about these books, especially if you're enjoying what I have to say. If you haven't clicked like yet or haven't clicked the subscribe button, this is probably the only time that I'm going to interrupt the list to ask you to do so. So Foundation's on Edge, over to those buttons and click them. The Foundation series is one of the most influential science fiction series of all time. Asimov was the first to introduce us to a truly galactic empire and basically create a new genre of science fiction and influence some of the greatest works of science fiction, not limited to Dune, The Culture, The Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, and Star Trek. Asimov coined the terms positronic brains and robotics and the 3 laws of robotics. Asimov is an expert in social and political forces and how they move civilization along certain paths. When I first met this series decades ago, it impacted my worldview in ways that I didn't even know about at the time. I include this later work of the Foundation series as a separate entry from the original trilogy, as there were decades between the end of the Foundation trilogy and when Asimov, compelled by fans and his publishers, wrote this brilliant novel. Let me show you some cool covers of Neuromancer. We've got this one from the Far East. I'm not going to guess exactly where these were because I don't remember. And we got this one. This is one of my favorites. Look at that guy. Here's the one I actually read from because I don't mind messing this one up. Number 13 is Neuromancer by William Gibson, published in 1984. This is the original cyberpunk novel. It follows Case, a super hacker who is mysteriously hired for a digital heist against a powerful artificial intelligence. I absolutely love this book. It's difficult to recommend it as it's not the easiest read, and it's also not clear that it's a guarantee that somebody's going to love it. I don't know exactly what the secret sauce is here, but the book connected with me. Gibson connected with me. If it connects with you, it all falls into place and you're going to love it. If it doesn't, I can just see you thinking, what did I just read? There is magic in this book. I don't mean that the book has magic in it. I mean it magically created a vision in my head that was unique in so many ways to anything else that I've ever read. We're not done with Ray Bradbury yet either. At number 12 is The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. This was published in 1950. This is a magical reading experience that feels like it should be in a category of all its own. I was hooked from the beginning. This book is a bunch of Bradbury short stories that are strung together in a common narrative. It's focused on humans traveling to and trying to colonize Mars. I was hooked from the moment that the astronauts were going door to door on Mars and the Martians just couldn't be bothered. It was an inconvenience. They're like, yeah, right, buddy, you're from Earth. They were irritated by the inconvenience of the attempted first contact. There's so much fun with mind games, and then their ideas are really cool and there's beautiful writing. I can't reread this book enough. I think that even those that aren't interested in science fiction can really have a lot of fun with this one. At number 11 is The Player of Games, and this will be the sole representation for the Culture series. Ian M. Banks wrote this in 1987 and beyond. The Culture series encompasses a far future expansive universe. The Culture are a mega advanced society made up of advanced, fully sentient AI. Resources are basically unlimited, and there's little need for anything other than fun, personal enjoyment, peace of mind. This is one of the great science fiction series of all time. The world building is immense. Through the many books in the series, there are other highly intelligent and advanced species and civilization that the culture get into all kinds of situations with. And it's really the great examination we get of culture, like actual cultural exploration, through following the culture that makes this series shine. Use of weapons, which was really emotionally moving, or player of games, I would have to say were my favorites of the series. The time has come. My top 10 favorite science fiction novels of all time. Number 10, Dahlgren by Samuel R. Delany, published in 1974. This is just a brilliant novel. Very strange things happen in a mysterious fictional Midwestern city, and anything else I tell you is not going to help you decide if it's something that you want to read. Delany is a brilliant author with a style all of his own. The book is odd, and you can flip it open to the center, and you can look at it there, and that might actually be the beginning. It's more brilliant than confusing, but it is both. Given the placement of this novel in the top 10 and the prolific presence of Greg Egan on this list, it might seem a trend that I am a sucker for fiction that makes me work and struggle through the reading experience. It really isn't the case. I think there are just that small number of great novels that require patience because without it, the brilliant parts or the book's power to inspire can be missed. Reading this book, I developed a dissertation in my head, and I had multiple deep conversations with myself, sort of, that my hands and my brain could never move fast enough or well enough to write it down. How could I not love something that gave me that experience? At number 9 is Dicronauts. This was published in 2017. Did you think we were done with Greg Egan? After this, we are, I promise. This is a story about the inhabitants of a hyperboloid world orbited by a star with an unusual rotation, creating shifting habitable and uninhabitable zones. The population is always moving their cities because of this. More unusual is that unlike our world of 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time, this world has 2 dimensions of time and only 2 dimensions of space. Wrap your brain around that. The people here are symbionts. The walker is the ambulatory person who can move only backwards or forwards, east or west facing. This is 2-dimensional space, remember, so rotation isn't possible. The walkers have siders threaded through their skull, allowing for sight using echolocation or pinging to the sides, the north and south, creating a full range of sight or awareness. This book is hard science fiction at its finest and hardest. Check out my review on this for more, or I'm going to go on for another hour fanboying about this book. Continuing with our best of the best, at number 8, I went with House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds. This was published in 2008. This is a very imaginative story. There's a girl, Abigail. She clones herself into many what are called Shatterlings. These Shatterlings have adventures across the universe, and then they meet up for reunions, and they share like where we've been, what we've done. The Shatterling stories are compelling enough, but most brilliant is the edge of your seat, seamless space chase across the universe that takes place over billions of years, and Reynolds does this effortlessly. This is another science fiction book I most often recommend to new readers to science fiction. Alastair uses a lot of traditional science fiction tropes such as AI, interstellar travel, cloning, alien life forms, and he does so with great skill and imagination. And no, I didn't mean to call him Alastair. I'm not on a first name basis with him. Alastair Reynolds, House of Suns. Now look what we've got here. I, Robot. This is I, Robot by Isaac Asimov, and we've got a couple of editions of this to show off. Some really cool ones. Here's another oldie and goodie. We don't open or read those ones, but we do read this one. This is a newer version. This is the one where we don't mind flipping the pages on. So we're at number 7, and I, Robot and the Robot series by Isaac Asimov. In addition to hosting the unforgettable protagonist Ardetmind Oliver, the Robot series is one of the most significant, meaningful, foundational, and enjoyable series in all of science fiction. I, Robot and the Caves of Steel introduces us to the positronic brain, the 3 laws of robotics, and coined all of those terms. I include the 2 novels together as the connected short stories of I, Robot. really feel like the prologue for the exciting and energetic galaxy-spanning space detective buddy cop novel, Caves of Steel, and its sequels. I, Robot is a must-read for Asimov or even any science fiction enthusiast, as it really sheds light on Asimov's views of humanity and how he focuses his work more on humanity and civilizations, more so than on individuals. The Robot series also connects eventually with the Foundation series. Ardetmind Olival is a significant character in both series. It's very easy to see the clear influence iRobot has had on novels from Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, to Kazuo Ishiguro's Clara in the Sun, to Star Trek's Data, and 2001 A Space Odyssey's HAL 9000. Coming in at number 6, we love our international covers. If you haven't figured out or translated it, The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. This is the same spot on the list that I was talking about with Death's End at number 20. That's how close these entries in the top 20 are for me. I've decided to list all 3 novels of the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy on this list because the books were so completely unique to each other in what they brought to the table. Dark Forest is the first sequel to Three Body Problem. This was the best of the trilogy. The Dark Forest theory as presented altered my mindset about how I view the search for extraterrestrial life and the universe. I can understand why people loved Three Body Problem and why others didn't. I hope those that didn't stick with the trilogy so that they don't miss out on this brilliant science fiction that is present in the 2 sequels, Dark Forest and Death's End. I promised myself during this list I wasn't going to pull out all of my copies of Dune, but there are a few that I'm going to show right now. The first is this beautiful Folio Society edition of Dune. This is one of my absolute favorites. I'm going to put this down here. This is God Emperor Dune, still wrapped in cellophane from my last move. Children of Dune. This may or may not be a first edition. I'm not sure, but I should probably handle it a little more carefully. And then we've got this version, which is a very iconic version of Dune. I've got that shiny new deluxe edition, but I've seen that in almost every science fiction podcast or video that's been on YouTube, so I'm not going to show that one. Number 5 is Frank Herbert's Dune, published in 1965. This is the tale of Paul Atreides, son of a murdered duke on the desert planet of Arrakis, and the warriors of that planet who follow him. Arrakis is coveted for its main asset, the politically and economically significant spice, melange, a drug that it can imbue users with prescience and extend and enhance life. Frank Herbert's masterpiece is an accomplishment in world building, political intrigue, and character profiles, and is, of course, one of my favorite novels of all time. I've read this book 11 times. I love it so much. Number 4 on the list is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, published in 1989. Hyperion Cantos, Hyperion and its companion or sequel, Fall of Hyperion, is told in a great and unique style, following several individuals traveling on a pilgrimage to Hyperion to visit these tombs that are moving backwards in time. Each character's story has its own unique style. Those styles include military science fiction, space opera, cyberpunk, horror, twisted romance, and more. Most striking for me was the haunting priest's tale and the fates of Father Hoyt and Father Duray. Through the novel, we also get each's connection to the mysterious and vicious blade-covered creature, the Shrike. Reading this book inspired me to start this YouTube channel. At number 3 is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, published in 1986. Humans are battling and losing against an alien race, the Buggers. This series features heavily in space opera and military science fiction. Ender, a young child, is a prodigy of sorts, selected along with other promising children for battle school and eventually leadership roles. These brilliant and strategic thinking kids are basically humanity's only hope. This book and the entire series are wholly satisfying, highly philosophical, and masterfully touch on themes of compassion and humanity. Especially entertaining in the book are the battle school training rooms and Ender's out-of-the-box strategizing. He's Kobayashi Maruing all over the place. At number 2, and I had to do this, Speaker for the Dead by Orson Scott Card, published in 1986. Speaker for the Dead, for me, even exceeds Ender's Game and is so unique to it that I have to rank it separately and in this rightful spot. This is one of the greatest science fiction stories of all time. Speaker takes place thousands of years after the events of Ender's Game, and Ender is in his late 30s. Ender carries guilt and regret from actions during the war with the Buggers. He writes a book about a race known as the Formics and has become a speaker for the dead, meaning he deeply investigates, writes about, and comprehensively eulogizes the dead. Ender's story is the most sympathetic and haunting character experience to connect with me in such a profound way that it even impacted my worldview when I first read it. It's unfortunate that the author of this book is virulently homophobic, and it's quite a juxtaposition to his most famous character who, in contrast, is enlightened, compassionate, and evolved. And the moment we've all been waiting for, I know I have been, is the #1 book, Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and the Foundation series, the Foundation trilogy. We'll just go through a bunch of these covers. I've got so many copies of this thing. I'm not going to show them all, but we'll go through some of them here. Second Foundation, one of the sequels. We've got another Foundation. This is one of the more iconic, I think, covers. And then we've got Foundation again. And then we've got this cool one that I keep covered because this is a first edition. Second Foundation by Isaac Asimov. This one's not in great shape, so we're going to keep that one covered. #1 is Foundation by Isaac Asimov, published in 1951. It's arguable that at least half of the books on this top 10 of mine are inspired in some way by or have directly lifted from the masterpiece that is the Foundation trilogy, the Foundation series. If there are millions of worlds inhabited by trillions and quadrillions of individuals, among such a large number, would there not be at least one with such superhuman abilities as the Mule? A character who to us would appear to be superhuman. This, one of the greatest to me villains in all of literature, the Mule, is not just believable, he's an inevitability. The scope of this series, the brilliance of Asimov's creation of psychohistory, a blend of history, psychology, sociology, statistics, mathematics, etc., and the immense galactic empire he has created is one of the greatest, most imaginative, and the most enjoyable accomplishments of literature ever conceived. So I'm going with Foundation as my #1 pick, and Foundation and Empire in Second Foundation, and the entire Foundation series. Thank you for watching today. Please jump down to the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this list. Remember, this is not a list of what I am deeming the best written science fiction of all time. These are my favorite reads, the reads I enjoyed the most, ranked from 1 to 150. Please let me know what you think. Give me your top 10 in the comment section. Challenge me on any of my picks and why I enjoyed them if you can't understand it. Please like, please subscribe. Please click the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every Thursday at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you. Thank you for sticking around. As promised at the beginning of this video, I have a little surprise at the end. I'm going to do a sort of mini unboxing for my #1 selection, which was Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. And I have here the Foundation trilogy that was recently released by the Folio Society. This was another gift to myself from my birthday back in August, and it's been sitting just waiting for this video. So we're just going to unbox this really quick and take a look at it. I haven't seen these yet. So let's take a look and see what we got here. Take this nice paper off. The Foundation trilogy. We've got this box 3 here, so this is going to be Foundation, Foundation and Empire, and Second Foundation. I know I kind of want to go right to Foundation and Empire, and you can probably guess why I want to do that. Look at this. I'm going to keep these dividers here. And we're not going to spend a lot of time with this. We've been at this for a while, right? So let's see. There's some great illustrations in these Folio Societies. We've got Harry Seldon there. And we're going to be careful because I am surrounded by books everywhere, and I don't want to mess anything up. Got a nice rocket going on there. So that one I wasn't expecting it to be super impressive, but it's beautiful. I like it. The pages look nice. It's got a nice smell going on in here. Check this out. This is the one I want to get to. You know who I'm looking for in here. If we don't find it, I'm not going to show it, but let's see if we can find the Mule. Do we get a picture of the Mule? Oh my goodness. I love it. Look at that. Oh, wow. I was worried. There's a I have it in my intro. I have a picture of the mule that is one of my favorites of him, and I just love the depiction. So I was worried that I wasn't going to be impressed, and then how was I going to feel if I wasn't impressed by this? But look at that. That's awesome. Now we got to look and see if there's any more mule in here. No, that's not the mule. I'm like going way too fast through these pages. I should certainly be more gentle. A little throne there makes sense. Oh my god, now I just want to sit down, and I'm not ready to reread this right now, but like I'm already reading 2 books at the moment. This is amazing. Okay, I'm not showing you any of this, but we got to see the mule there. And let's take a look at Second Foundation real quick. Look at that. Nice smell. Oh wow, that's great. Beautiful. Get this one here. I'm curious who the artist is. I'll put who the artist is. Oh, Alex Wells. It had to be, because he's this. I believe he's the same one that did the Folio Society for the Dune book. Let's see if I still got that one here. Oh, don't drop those. And is it Alex Wells? Oh no, it was Sam Weaver. Okay, well, the style didn't look the same, but like I thought, this is my favorite illustration. Is this picture here of Paul. You can kind of see how that sparkles. Get a little bit more after the credits than you bargained for. All right, let's just go back and take another look at Second Foundation while we're having fun with these Folio Society editions. Oh wow, these are so cool. I feel bad that like I'm putting my fingers all over them too. Yeah, this is definitely a totally different illustration style than the Dune books, but God, it's so nice. And I don't like to read these nice copies, but then you open this and you're like, I want to sit down and read this. I think what I'll do is the next time I read them, I'll use one of my older books and I'll read through those. But then like when I'm having a time where I know I'm going to read like 2 pages and I can be in like a really clean area and undisturbed, I'll pick this up and just read a few pages of it. And then I'll go back to the older beat up copy. Thanks again for watching today. Fit to be read. You've already saw all that stuff that I said to say goodbye to you. Goodbye.